Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Leland Baptist. I am one of the private bankers with Lee-Chandler, and today we're going to talk about the option, okay? Often referred to as a lease option in real estate. However, an option can also be used for, for business purchases as well. But there's a few key things that we need to talk about when it comes to options, all right? So do not get confused on the difference between a lease and a lease option. Totally two different things, and we're going to talk about that today, all right? So depending on what state you're in, when it comes to a lease option, it may be frowned on, it may not be frowned on. So for example, in Illinois, the climate for lease options are kind of frowned upon. But in Texas and things like that, they have a term. So Texas says that, hey, you can only have a lease option for up to 6 months. All right, that's something to kind of be aware of. You have the ability to reinstate or have another lease option for another 6 months and so forth. But Texas is really key on they want their people to go into home ownership. Likewise, in Indiana, especially Marion County is very, very pro home ownership. All right, so you want to know, your county's rules, especially your state's rules when it comes to the lease option. Like I said, some states are gung-ho about lease options, others are not so much, okay? Now, for Marion County and Indiana, especially, what they require is both the lease and the option are two separate documents, and they have to be signed by all parties, but they're two separate documents. They are not one document, okay? They're not one document. So be careful if you are looking for a lease option, whether it's for your investment or even to live in. These things have to be two separate things, okay? Now, one of the things that I know for certain that different judges look for, and also different attorneys, is that they want to make sure that whoever has that lease, that this lease verifies that this person is not ownership, and that this person has what's considered occupant status. So in other words, that particular lease means that the occupant or the tenant is only taking care of things associated with that person being a tenant. So that means that tenant should not be paying taxes for the property. The tenant should not be paying repairs for the property, okay? That is the requirements of the owner of that property or estate, right? The tenant should also really just be considered just a tenant. So that includes also that of cutting grass, okay? So if you're doing a lease option, in that lease, they're going to expect the tenant to have normal tenant rights and normal tenant responsibilities, okay? Very, very important. When it comes to an option, this is something that people really don't know. An option, you have to activate that option. And that can be activated not just by money, what I have here, it can be activated also by the term or the time period for someone being there. So you could possibly say, hey, listen, this is my property, it's an investment property, and I'm willing to do a lease option with you. However, here's how it's going to go. I'm going to give you a 12-month lease. At the end of that 12-month lease, if everything is fine, then I will actually give you the option, right, to activate the option to purchase. I'll give you first rights of refusal in a time period. It could be 3 months, 6 months, but I'll give you, these 3 months to purchase the property before I put it on the market or before I give it to someone else. And so it doesn't have to necessarily be money that's exchanged for that option to purchase, okay? Now, if it is money in exchange, something that's very, very important for you to know if you are the investor is that in Marion County specifically, well, Indiana specifically, if someone gives over 20% of the purchase price amount, that lease option will actually at that point become a land contract, okay? So big difference, okay? A land contract. So what you normally will see in this case is only 10% being given or less than that as a down payment for the option to purchase, and that's if someone's using money as the activator to activate or enforce that option. All right. You want to make sure that you also read the fine print, because the option should only be the option to purchase. That's really all it's meant to be, and it's meant to give individuals a time period of, hey, you have 90 days to obtain your own financing to purchase this asset or this business or this property. What you normally will see, though, is what you normally should see is on the option, it should have the amount that the seller or the investor is looking to relinquish that property for. So if that amount is $100,000, that should be in the fine print for the option, okay? And then it should say something like, hey, give you the ability to obtain your own financing. Be careful if the wording is reading that the seller will help finance, will help finance the buyer, right? Or as a vendor kind of thing. Because what you want to know is in what cases or how exactly is this person going to help finance that individual for that property? Is it going to be seller financing? How is it going to pan out? You also want to make sure, just to be safe, I would also just have this notarized as well. Okay. So let's recap real quick before we finish. When we talk about options and lease options, whether it's for real estate or business, okay, whether you have the option to purchase someone's business or the option to purchase someone's property, whatever it may be, if it's a lease option, your lease and your option should be two separate documents, okay? Two separate documents. And that lease, if you're going to end up taking someone to court, the judge wants to see, especially in Indiana, the judge wants to see that the tenant has normal occupant and tenant status and rights, and also does not have the responsibility that someone would for ownership, okay? If you are someone who's looking to have the same benefits of a lease option and yet have your tenant perform services or whatever as if they're the owner of the property, taking care of taxes, insurance, and all the other stuff, then you're looking for a lease option, right? There are other contracts for that that we'll talk about in other videos. But for this one, you need to have a lease, and that lease needs to be a separate document, and it needs to give the tenant regular tenant rights. Okay. Last but not least, the option. Your option can be activated or enforced based on someone putting money as a down payment, or a time period, right? So it could be, hey, because you lived in this property for 9 months straight and you haven't defaulted, or you haven't missed any rental payments, you now have the option for the next 3 months or 90 days to go ahead and secure your own financing to buy this property from me, okay? Make sure you read the fine print. Honestly, an option should be about 1 page, maybe 2 pages max. An option should not be very, very long in text, because it should be very, very straightforward. You want to make sure that it has the price of the option, okay? If it does have an activation, how much is that? Is it a down payment? Is it less than 20%? Very, very important to know, and so forth. Now, if it is 20% or more, in that case, if you were to go to court, that will be looked at or viewed as a land contract or a mortgage. And at that point, what's going to happen is the judge is going to want to know why it was not recorded as such, okay? So we'll talk about that in other videos, but make sure that these two are two separate documents, both the lease and the option, all right? So thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you guys on the next video.